I'm Danny, that witch next door, and you're listening to That Witch Podcast. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of That Witch Podcast. I'm Danny, I'm that witch next door, and today I am going to be your host, your guide, your mentor, and instructor, of course, in all things magic, witchcraft, astrology, and witchy business. But today I will be joined by a wonderful guest that I'm so excited to more officially introduce to all of you. Those of you in That Witch School have already been introduced to this wonderful person. But today I have one of my Think and Grow Witch graduates, one of my regular clients, a full-time student in That Witch School, and now very dear friend of mine, Mary Sue, who's going to be talking all about what we wish we knew when we very first started reading for tarot in general, for ourselves, for other people. I'm really excited because Mary Sue is going to be hosting a very special workshop for all of our full-time students in That Witch School. Part-time students, you'll get replay access to that lesson, don't forget. And really starting to open our students up to that are ready to start reading tarot for other people outside themselves, potentially, eventually on a professional scale. So I'm so excited to have you here, my dear. Mary Sue, will you go ahead and say hello to everybody?
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here, but it's really funny. I feel like a fangirl. The amount of hours that we have actually talked, should mean that I'm not nervous at all, because I've talked to you so many times before. But being a fan of the show, having watched or listened for about a year, I guess, or a little bit over a year, it feels surreal to be on the show. So I'm super excited. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God. Of course. That just warms my heart to the core. Oh my God. So much. Mary Sue, you are a very, very special guest because we have had no one here like you. So for this introduction, of course, please share with us your big three, but let us know who you are and what you do, my dear.
Okay, so for my big three to start, I am a Gemini sun. I've got an Aquarius moon and a Pisces rising. So lots of big air energy. I always love to say this. It's like my tagline right now. I'm also in my Saturn return right now. I have my Aquarius and Saturn.
It is your tagline. I love it.
But it's just like context into my life. But yeah, and my psyche, but I am definitely different than the people you've had on before, because I read tarot. So I'm in the witchy community in that way. I read tarot professionally, but I'm also a full-time online sex worker. So I work mostly on OnlyFans, but on a couple different other sites. I'm sure most people listening have probably heard of OnlyFans. So that's like the big name to say. But I've been doing that for the past 4 years. I really love it. And it's been a very intentional journey of discovering my connection to my sexuality in connection with my spirituality, because I actually discovered witchcraft and the occult around the same time that I started doing sex work. So it's been very much entwined for me. So I'm kind of on this continuing journey that I think I'll probably be on for the rest of my life. But I just started a podcast that I'm going to be using as a way to kind of share that journey with people. So I'm super excited to get into really tangibly figuring out what I've been learning, because it's kind of just been like, go, 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 go. And I've learned a lot. I've been in Danny's mentorship program over this last year. So that was a ton of shadow work that really helped me along the way. And shadow work with a mentor is so much different than shadow work on your own.
Yes, it is. I'm so glad you said that.
So much different. Yeah. So me and Danny go way back now. I remember at the beginning of the year, whenever you got in contact with me, about doing the mentorship, I told this to Danny already, but it felt like my Hogwarts letter. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm like getting initiated. I'm a true witch now. So yeah, it was just super exciting. And I've learned so much. And I think now I'm finally getting to the point where I'm feeling comfortable in sharing with other people, because I think people can really learn from the connection between sexuality and spirituality, because it's a lot closer than you think it is.
100%. You have been such a cool client to work with on many levels, obviously personally, because we're very similar people and we just like are very in sync, but also because of the line of work that you're in. And it's been so cool for me as a guide and mentor to work with somebody in the sex work industry and in the spiritual industry and learning how to kind of pioneer bridging those gaps. I was just listening, or I just finished listening to your first episode of your podcast, like Mary Sue mentioned. It's called Sex Work for the Soul, which I just love. I just melted over the name. All about this journey, like you said. And I really appreciated how you mentioned in there that sex in general and sex work does not have to be sacred and spiritual in nature or in its branding or messaging or whatever to be quote unquote like good or right. And it's, you know, that's what really works for you and your path and your goals. But I love how open and welcoming you are to all kinds of demographics and backgrounds of different sex workers. And it's just been really, really cool for me because I've mentioned it on the show. I've mentioned it a few times. I'm still a very private Scorpio stellium at my IC. So I still keep lots of my secrets. But, you know, my partner and I, we are very active in the BDSM community and ethical and very proud kinksters and open relationship and ethical non-monogamy. And so working with an official online full-time sex worker has been really, really, really fun for me and all of my work and my sex positivity that I want to work through and healing that I want to do for myself and the impact that I want to have. And so I was really excited to have you teach in that witch school. So like I mentioned, Mary Sue's workshop will be tomorrow, November 30th. Okay, so that's going to be available to full-time students, but the replay will also be available to part-time students as well. So if you want to join us for that, you know where to do that in the show notes. But I want people to what I love about you bridging these gaps is I want people to see sex workers as the whole human beings that they are, very much in spite of their sexual energy and nature, not despite it, in spite of it. Especially because I agree with you. So much of my spirituality is entwined with my sex lifestyle and sexuality itself and identity. So I know that you said that you've been full-time on OnlyFans and everything for 4 years. How long have you been reading tarot? I know you said you discovered witchcraft and stuff around the same time. Both, how long have you been reading tarot professionally and personally for yourself? What did that look like for you?
So I started learning about tarot probably around 4 years ago. It was pretty much right at the same time that I started sex work. So I found a reader on YouTube that really like stuck out to me. And at the time I didn't believe in anything like tarot. Like I thought it was bullshit. I was like, what is this? This is for stats. Like, yeah. Yes, no, exactly. And eventually, once I started really listening to this one reader that I found, Bahati Life, on YouTube,
and we'll link her. I'm sure most people listening already know. Yeah,
she's an amazing.
But I'll still link her just in case.
Yeah, please do. So I joined her tarot school after getting just so many ridiculous messages from her that were like very, very small details that were so intricate in my life would come out in her readings. And I was like, this is insane. I have to learn the secret of this because I'm a Gemini, I'm a Gemini sun. So I'm just very curious about things. So I got super curious. and got into it. Started reading mostly for myself for the first year-ish. I think I was reading for some friends, a couple friends here and there. And my mom, bless my mom, she's so sweet. She lets me like share anything that I've been learning when it comes to spirituality, because
Aw.
she's a new agey type of gal. And she's been into all kinds of things since I can remember, like aliens and stuff. Like she's got the most open mind in the world. I think she's a Sagittarius moon. And so makes a lot of sense. But she would
Mhm.
help me by letting me kind of practice reading on her, a couple of my sisters as well. So I think I didn't start professionally reading until around 2 years ago, because I just needed that practice. I'm a Jupiter Virgo, so I needed to kind of get into the nitty gritty of the details of reading for other people before I felt really ready to start charging for
Totally.
it.
Hmm.
And the interesting part about like my tarot business is that a majority of the people that I get coming to me for readings are my sex work clients. So they're people that
Hmm.
are subscribed
I love
to
that.
my
Hmm.
pages. And most of the time, they're people that either have never really been exposed to tarot in any kind of way, or they're people that are, we'll just say, they don't necessarily believe in it at all. And they kind of want me to like prove them wrong, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a challenge, but I've learned a lot of different things of how to deal with that. But for the most part, I'm blessed with very open-minded people. I like to set myself up before my readings to really make sure people understand that tarot isn't what they might have thought it was. Like, it's not what you see in movies, it's not what you see in pop culture. And that's helped me a lot throughout that process. I have a background in teaching, I should mention. So I
You
think
have
that's
a
helped me
very
a lot.
eclectic background. I love it.
Yeah,
You're a
I've got a teaching
musician,
degree.
you're a teacher. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a teacher. Yeah.
So I think that's helped me a lot throughout giving these tarot readings, because I think that we are teachers when we're tarot readers. I feel like we have to teach people
Mm-hmm.
um, have, how to look inward and to really remove the bias that they have around themselves and around situations. And that comes through example, but it also comes through us just being able to lead them in the right direction, right, with the cards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've learned through teaching these people that um, are sometimes a challenge, but other times I make these great connections with people that otherwise never probably would have had a tarot reading. So
Exactly.
it's pretty cool.
So there's a couple of reasons why I asked you to host this workshop in the school, and why I asked you to record this episode with me, because obviously I know many wonderfully talented and skilled tarot readers out there, and you
Mm-hmm.
all know who you are, and hello. And I really wanted to talk with you because a lot of the work that we've had to do together one-on-one, I've obviously learned what kind of special boundaries you have to have in your profession. Spiritual service providers already have to have special boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
because most of us are not. I mean, I think everybody needs to be taught energetic boundaries, but especially when you start dabbling into straight up spiritual ethereal energies outside of us, yes, we definitely need to have some special boundaries. Then you add the layer of sex, which is this
Mm-hmm.
hugely significant layer.
Right.
There is a lot of safety that you have to maintain for yourself on many levels,
Mm-hmm.
both or all the way from the physical level through
Mm-hmm.
the spiritual energetic boundaries. And I really, in a lot of ways, when it comes to reading tarot for other people outside of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it really comes down to the boundaries.
Mm.
At the end of the day, it really
Yep.
does all end up boiling down to this. So the way I look at it, I'm like, what better person to talk to than somebody who is like in the business of making sustainable boundaries for themselves, so that like I can open myself up. There is this huge vulnerability aspect to your business and your career and everything that you do, obviously. but there is a lot of protection and safeguarding that you also have to do to be able to safely maintain that. And so that was a really, really big reason why I wanted to talk with you specifically, because I know that you, especially being in your Saturn return, boundaries are already a lesson you're in the middle of right now. Boundaries and limitations, yes, very much. But also because of the unique kind of straddling that you do between these two worlds, honestly. Right. It's really cool. We've talked about this since we started working together. One of the things I love is, you know, right off the bat, we can kind of understand that Mary Sue's clientele are cis straight men most often, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
And most often we're like, if there's any group of people that were easy to label like, oh, they don't want anything to do with spirituality, they're not going to respect anything to do with spirituality and energy work and magic, it's going to be that group of people. I'm just going to call it what it is.
Right.
And yet the more I knew this deep down when we started working together, and sure enough, as we work together and I'm watching, you know, from the back end side of your business, these are also just human beings with souls in their bodies, okay, regardless of all those other identifiers, whom also are experiencing this call, this pull, this sacred call to the divine, and to tend to and work with their own energy and the collective energy. And I think that even though you do get those, and that's just all tarot readers in general, we get clients that show up and they're like, this is a dog and pony show and you better prove to me what your talent is here. But you have also started really attracting and connecting with and working with clients that see you and treat you on that sacred human level and are also starting to get in tune with themselves on that level as well. So tell us a little bit about how that journey has been for you now that you've been really, really blending these kind of two worlds together. How have you seen this start to take shape in your clientele and your audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think part of what I told you when we first started our mentorship was that I really wanted to heal my connection with divine masculine. Because being in the industry that I'm in, obviously, like you said, there has to be a lot of protection in place because there's just a lot of vulnerability on the line, and it's necessary, right? And we can't assume that any person is a super nice person that wouldn't do anything, you know, whatever. So me as a Pisces rising, I have like this natural want to be like the idealist that like believes in the good of everybody and really sits in that. But part of the challenge of having this job is that that kind of idealism has really like sank down, right? After experiences that made me feel otherwise. And so I've been on this really intentional journey of remembering, like you said, that everyone's just a person with a life, with emotions, with things that they're going through. And sometimes we just need someone to talk to about it. And that's honestly what it comes down to when it comes
I believe it.
to these people that come to me. Yeah, is that they don't have people that are listening to them in their lives. And I think that's really on the patriarchy, really making men believe that being soft and vulnerable is weak. And it's actually quite literally the opposite, because it takes so much strength to admit whenever you are down and whenever you're really struggling. And so, you know, that kind of thing that these men are taught really makes them believe that having any kind of vulnerability, they have so much fear around having that. And so they're able
and that connection too, right? Do you think that's what keeps them from really connecting with other people?
Yes. And I think being able to be that person that can just tell them, you know, hey, I'm proud of you for reaching out to me. I know that this is kind of weird. People aren't really used to this kind of stuff, and I commend you for being open enough to reach out to me. And I make sure to really like give them validation in that, because first of all, just coming and reaching out to me is a big deal. If they're
Yeah.
really truly coming to me ready and open to receive messages, which many of them are, it's touching to me. So I try to connect with them as much as I can on a human level during our interactions. And most of the time, I find that I do get a lot of people coming to me for relationship readings, as you can probably guess.
Yes.
So, but a lot of people, one person that I had recently just went through a messy divorce. And so sometimes you can get the people that come to you as a tarot reader and they're like, I just went through this divorce. How do I get them back? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's take a step back.
Very common.
Let's figure out how we can help you. Let's not focus on other people. And so, but in this particular reading that I'm thinking of, like, I really just got to connect with this guy on a personal level and tell him, yeah, this is going to be hard. You're going to face these things during this time, but you've got this on your side, and really kind of coach him through that moment. And it was really nice to connect with him on that. And I think it changes the relationship that I have with these clients specifically, because sometimes it can just be a very surface relationship when you're a sex worker with your clients. But this has enabled me to go a little deeper, but in a safe way with these people. And I wanted to mention when you were talking about boundaries, with those people that do come to me that are not ready for a tarot reading. Let's just put it down to that. They're not ready for it. They are obviously skeptical. I just say to them, and I'm going to get into this in the tarot class that we're doing later, but I just tell them, tarot is best suited for people that come to it with an open mind. If you are feeling closed-minded right now and very skeptical, then I suggest that you wait and you come back to me when you're feeling ready. Because I don't have to accept those kinds of people, and I think that's important for tarot readers to understand. It's not our job to convince people. You can make that your job if you really want it to be, I suppose, but it's not your job. And you don't have to take on that responsibility, because you will change people's minds through your messages when they're ready to hear it.
Yes,
that's it.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Honestly, that's like perfect divine segue into our show topic for today. Anyway, so I love this. Because again, the subject of boundaries is going to be talked about more than once today. Absolutely. Because it's kind of the key when we're taking tarot outside of ourselves. We talked a lot on our previous episode with Marissa, the current hermit, really about tarot for self, what that looks like, creating that practice, the benefits of that. And I wanted to do an episode for those of us that feel called or are already doing and reading tarot for people outside of ourselves, because there are so many little nuggets. I would love to go back and tell younger Danny. so many little stressors I would get hung up on that now I'm like, oh my God, don't give a shit about this. It's totally fine. It's going to be fine. So I'll start things off. So I'm going to just have Mary Sue and I kind of go back and forth with each of our little, like, something I wish that I knew back then. Hi, neighbor. I want to take a quick moment to thank our episode affiliate for the day, one of my favorite companies and products to date, Magic of Eye and their astrological planner. If this is not your first time in the neighborhood and you've been around for a while, you very well know how much I love and how frequently I mention this planner. It has been a part of my astrological journey pretty much since the very beginning of my studies. This planner not only has educational support like reference materials, there's basically a mini textbook at the beginning of this planner, but it also just has journey support, because there's journal spaces, there's a lunar calendar, there's a transit calendar to help you learn astrology, but to actually start living very cyclically and cosmically, regardless of your experience level. This is what I love about this planner. It's very, very accessible, no matter what experience level you are with astrology. personally, I use it for both my personal life and my business. It's an integral part of my planning and scheduling practices. Now, this year for the 2023 edition, their new theme is astromycology. So, in this 280 page astrology planner, again, that is for all different experience levels, we are now getting the extra edition of mycology exploration, or the magic and healing properties of mushrooms. And this is absolutely a fascinating subject to me, as I'm sure it already is to so many of you. And the cool part is not only is there a section in the planner with different types of mushrooms and their healing properties and benefits, but they also have an exploration on astrology to fungi connection, which I think is so cool. Get yours today and support That Witch podcast by ordering yours at the link in the show notes below. And this can be what I wish I knew when I started reading tarot in general, and also for other people. That was like kind of my headspace here. And the first one that I put is, it's okay to use the book. It's okay to use the book. Oh my God. The book thing, whether it's the guidebook or purchasing a reference book, looking it up in an app, looking it up on a little tarot cheat sheet that you created for yourself. Listen, I get it. And I know that there really is this very existing stigma around that. I get it. I've had people say things to me before when I was doing a high turnover, like speed tarot readings and stuff, way back in the day at pop-ups and stuff like that. You're gonna get those skeptics and those cynics that make a comment or give you a look for looking something up in the book. But the thing of it is that this is still, I'm sorry, fuck off. This is still a very intricate and very complex system and practice to learn. And it makes sense that we need to be allowed to repeat the information, looking at it over and over and over again. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you're a fraud. And I'll definitely come back to that statement later on in one of my other bullet points. But I just wish that I could go back and tell myself, and I'm proud that back then regardless of what people said, I still had my book next to me because I was so scared and nervous to not have it. But I wish that I could just go back and be like, oh my God, you're like not doing anything wrong. You're just learning a new thing. Yeah. That's all you're doing.
When I first started doing my readings for clients, I record them, like it's a pre-recorded thing that I'll send to them, right? And I used to record the beginning of the reading where it showed my hands shuffling, and I'd pick all the cards and I'd give them a view of all the cards, and then I would pause. And then I would write down what I first thought, and then I'd go and I'd grab my book and I'd write down some notes from my book, and then I would present from my notes because I felt so worried about not saying the right thing, right? That I was like, I need the book. I need it. And I love that you bring that up, because I think even though I did that, I had so much shame. I had so much shame around doing that. But it was just me needing a little bit of validation and also wanting to make sure I got all the little details, right? Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that.
If nothing else, my friends, you're being thorough and you're just making sure you're being accurate and like on track or whatever. There are 78 cards. They each also have a fucking reversal. God knows if you're using more than one deck style and artwork, like it's a lot for our brains. It's totally okay to use reference materials.
Yeah, no. And I wrote down that every card is multifaceted. So even besides the upright and the reverse positions, it's like there's many different things that you could think of for every single card. I remember at one point I went live on TikTok and I was just studying. I was reading, and I had a little aesthetic witchy stuff going on in the background or whatever. And I put in the description, I'm studying, and someone typed in, what are you studying? And I said, well, I'm studying the tarot. And they said, well, what is that? What do you have to learn with that? There's just cards, right? It's like, yeah, well, there's 78 cards. And then each of those cards have all these meanings. And then that guy was like, oh, oh, I see. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's funny whenever people look at tarot readers and they're like, it's just cards. It's like, do you even know? Do you even know
Oh my
how much
God.
studying we have to do just to
Seriously.
memorize 78 cards? Oh my gosh.
And they're not only are they multifaceted, like you said, but there are multiple methodologies within tarot and cartomancy in general.
Hmm.
You can learn the cards through so many different lenses and so many different approaches depending on the book, the teacher, the guide, whatever it is. And that's why I
Right.
always tell people, not only is it okay to use the book, your interpretation is only going to get stronger the more information you consume about these cards.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I
Mhm.
love that. I think it's when I first started, I definitely was like, well, I have a tarot teacher and I learned from her. It's like the only source that I really went with,
I had
except for
that
like the
too.
little
Yep.
booklet that I had with my tarot deck.
Same. I had like one, I was like, I learned, mine was Teresa Reed. I followed all of her content, the tarot lady, listened to her
Mhm.
podcast, just consumed everything. And I was like, that's who taught me tarot. That's like where I learned tarot. And then I was like,
Yep.
okay, but also, but
But
also.
also, yeah, there's so many other places to get information from.
Yes.
And the one of the big things I wrote down though is something that I've been making more of a connection to in my own journey with my own tarot. But I think that for me, it comes down to connecting with the cards on a personal level. I think
Totally.
when I was first starting to read for other people, I felt like I had these very personal connections with these cards, and I felt very nervous about speaking on that or sharing what came up for me to try to give my querent, you know, a trigger to make a connection on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I felt so self-conscious about doing that at first, but I think that is the way to go. I think that
Yeah.
us connecting personally and showing that and being vulnerable in that and giving an example through that can help our parents to learn how to do that for themselves, because a lot of people can't really, especially if you're seeing these cards for the very first time. If you're someone that's not interested, or if you don't have any background in tarot and you're getting a reading and someone tells you about some card, you're not going to automatically connect it to a memory right away. But if someone
Mm-hmm.
tells you a story about how that card relates to their life, then it's so much easier for us to understand things in terms of stories. I think that
Absolutely.
that's like so key whenever you're reading for someone else, is to not be afraid to connect your own personal story that you have behind that card, because it can really help other people to make that connection for themselves.
Oh, I love that. That's so, so, so important. And I never would have thought about it from that way. It can be so much more challenging to do that organically for yourself. But when someone's
Hmm.
like kind of setting that example for you in front of you, it triggers
Hmm.
so many connections for you. That's so true.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that. Is that what's your first one? Is that your,
That was one of my big ones, and I wrote another thing with that, which is that if we think about each of our tarot cards like a story, like
uh-huh,
there is a specific story behind the symbolism of
right?
the like Rider Waite Smith deck,
Mm-hmm.
but I think if we think about them in that way, we can look at our readings less in a like future telling kind of sense. Some people can look at a tarot reading and they'll go, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is set in stone. Like this is my fate, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
some cards serve for that, right? But then other cards are more like, it's like a choose your own story situation.
Yeah,
So you get a card and then
totally.
you figure out, how am I going to react to this? How am I going to move forward from this? What action am I going to take to figure out this situation? So as long as we can like keep that forward momentum while we're reading for people, I
Yes.
think that it's so helpful, especially for when you get those like typically negative kinds of
Uh-huh.
cards.
That I love that a lot because I even had to really, really learn that lesson for myself. It was easy for me to put the spin on it for a client. It's
Hmm.
easy when I'm outside of myself to be like, look, I can see the big picture with this. I know this is hard. I know this is challenge. I know this is hardship. And I can see and hear your guides telling me, you got this, you can handle it. It is a lot, and I know it's part of your journey. And then when we get those kinds of cards for ourselves, this actually just happened to me over the weekend. First of all, I will say that what usually happens is you are going into the reading with expectations, even if it doesn't feel like it, but you are.
Yep.
And because that's the only reason you're feeling disappointed. You shouldn't even be feeling disappointed if you didn't have any expectations and you really went into it with an open mind. But the truth is, because we utilize this tool for so much self-growth, we do reach for our deck when we're in our emotions or in our emotional mind and in our emotional energy. And so we go into it not from a place of seeking answers, but seeking reassurance. And the truth is, as harsh as this may be, that's not the tarot's fucking job. That's not its responsibility, is to reassure you. It's a messaging system for truth and illumination. And that's why I loved what you said about what you suggest to your clients, because we have to do that for people we read for when they're not able to recognize it for themselves. Just like when we're reading for ourselves and we have to recognize like, I came at this from an emotionally charged place. I did not come into this with an open mind. I definitely am having expectations. I was expecting an answer. There was an answer I was looking for, and that's not how tarot works. And you know, I like what you say about the forward, like moving forward and keeping that momentum, because the reading I did over the weekend, again, had to be honest with myself. And I was like, you're disappointed. You came into this with a picture of what you were going to get. It was a 3-card spread. 2 of them, I was like, yep. And then the last one, I was like, what? God damn it. You know what I mean? One of those where you're like, what? And you kind of turn into your old toddler self and you're like, why? It shouldn't be like that. That doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly the mode that I went into. And I really integrated a lot of the tarot advice that I've been giving and receiving, especially this year. And I was just like, all right, we know we got this card for a reason. We asked, we really sat down. I thoughtfully crafted these questions. Like, I know I felt the pull of that card. Like that, there was no wrong card pull. Like it was the correct card. But as soon as I followed that advice and kind of grounded and like cleansed of my emotional energy in that moment and let myself just sit with the imagery, I love pulling out like 3 books. That's my Gemini Mars. I'm like, let's see what everyone in the world has to say about this card.
And then I'll figure out what I think.
And then I'll decide exactly. And it's true. And the meaning and the connection it made and the message that was trying to be conveyed to me totally blossomed. Of course, it was exactly what I fucking needed. And by the way, for anyone that's curious, it was goddamn reverse King of Swords. And it just was like, I feel like I've been doing so much growth in the swords. Like, why am I getting reversed King? And right there, that was why. That was me being in my reversed King of Swords energy. So I really, really like that you bring that up, because most newbies that I talk to get really hung up on what you're talking about. And I've even had a listener recently, I can't remember which one it was, but if you remember your question, hi, how are you? About, am I doing something wrong? I feel like I'm getting all these negative readings, but when I pull cards for my partner, their cards are really positive and mine are negative. And am I using the wrong deck? Am I asking the wrong questions? And I was like, none of this has to do anything with being wrong. What is the message being given to you? You need to sit with that and unfold it. And exactly.
What does your mental landscape look like right now? Because it seems like it's a mirror image kind of thing, That happens to me a lot whenever I'm in a downward spiral. I'm not feeling good, and I pick up my tarot deck and I pull my cards, and then I get like the Tower card and the Devil reversed and stuff, and I'm like, maybe I'll just take a break, because it's okay to get those kinds of cards. It's not a death sentence. It's not like doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It just means that life is happening around you and it's time to react.
Absolutely.
I think the sooner we take the fear out of those negative cards, the sooner we can really let ourselves just sit in that space of flow, because you're never
Yeah.
going to get through these negative moments unless you allow them to flow. And when we
Exactly.
fight them, that's whenever they stick around, right? So I think
Yep.
like when you're picking cards and they're not resonating, that's probably a message that you need to just put them down for a little bit
I
and take a
totally,
day.
totally agree.
What I
Absolutely.
like to do, what I started doing a couple years into my practice was picking one card every night and putting it under
Mhm.
my pillow, sometimes with a little
Ooh,
moonstone. It's,
I
yeah,
love
a little
that.
dream work. And
Hmm.
I would ask spirit for a card that I needed to, like something that my subconscious needed to focus on during my dreams. And
Oh my God, I love that idea.
it was so nice because it was shadow work, but it was also like fun because I'm just asking for
Yes,
dreams, right? And
totally.
it takes it out of the like deep dark space that sometimes shadow work can get into when you're feeling that negative. So that was super helpful. I didn't even write that down, but I figured, yeah,
That was
somebody might like
good.
that.
I really appreciate that. That's a really good one.
I think
Oh no, go ahead.
the thing that I wrote that goes along with what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
like when you pick a card that you're just like, what the fuck? Why'd you have to
Mm-hmm.
give me that right now? Like I really didn't need that. It's usually just because it's already a mirror of what you're feeling, right? Deep down. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes when those cards come through, we also expect ourselves to be able to understand them right away. And we
Exactly.
really have to understand that sometimes you need to let things sit. And the big message that keeps coming through to me when I've been thinking about this stuff is the universe doesn't work on human timing. We don't get to just pick when
Exactly.
we understand, you
No.
know? You have to
No.
wait. You have to
Thank
wait. You have to
you.
have patience.
This isn't even the only system of time that's been in existence. Our
True.
fucking system of time has changed throughout human history.
Mm-hmm.
The Gregorian calendar is not, I mean, the scheme of human history, not that old.
Mm-hmm.
Not that
Mm-hmm.
old. So to be like, gods,
Excuse
spirit,
me.
hello. Exactly. That's so silly.
It
Our
is.
soul
It's
doesn't
funny.
operate on that.
Yeah. But I think whenever you become a tarot reader, you find out that a lot of people want that instant answer. They want the
Totally.
solve for whatever problem they're
They
facing.
want the
So
solve.
yeah,
Yes.
when I read for people now, and this goes along with what you were saying before this last point, I I literally say to them, I'll ask them a few questions before a reading, and one of them is always, what do you want to get out of this reading? What do you want to take away from this tarot reading? And sometimes they don't even know what to say because they can't figure out what they want from it. And they're just kind of looking for any answer, right? But then other times they'll say a specific thing, like I'm hoping that it'll show this and that and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I'll go, okay. And that's kind of, I don't even say anything to them before the reading about that. Actually, I take it into account whenever I am giving the reading, though. And
Mm-hmm.
I make sure to say, like, I understand that you've had a lot of expectations for this situation that you're asking for advice on. And I want to encourage you to open those expectations up a little bit, because sometimes what we're looking for isn't what we really need. And we have
Totally.
to open up to the possibilities, or else we'll never see them. So I try to really make sure while I'm giving these readings to make sure that people don't expect, or if they don't come into the reading expecting a certain answer, because
Mm-hmm.
they really do come for that. And I think it's the way that media has portrayed tarot in the
Oh,
past,
yeah.
because
Oh,
it's like they'll be like, what should I have for lunch tomorrow? And then the tarot reader's like, you should have this, and they're like, what how's this? But it's like such a weird understanding of tarot, and I always try to
yes.
dispel that, because it's not like that.
Yeah, you're going to get in a car accident next Tuesday if you don't grab your coat on the way out the door or
Yeah,
something. And like, hi,
right.
Hollywood, not even remotely close. But I
No.
love what you said. It is so importantly true that the answer that we're looking for is not always what we need.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And tons of times it's not. And our
Mm-hmm.
eyes and our focus were like totally zeroed in on one thing. And this, how
Mm-hmm.
often has this happened to all of us?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it turns out later on, you're like, oh my God, it never ever had anything to do with that all along. It
Right.
was always this
Right.
bigger and greater thing than that. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that so much. You know what? That actually goes with one of my points. So I'll go next. It perfectly ties in. And you kind of mentioned this too. But not everyone will accept the truth. If it's something that I could go back and tell myself, number one, you are not Danny, like younger Danny. You're not always going to be in a frame of mind ready and willing to accept truth. And people you read for, very, very much the same thing. And it totally like coincides with everything we're saying. It totally depends on usually why and how the reading came to be in the first place. So it's one of the first questions I ask anybody. It could be an astrology session, it could be a tarot reading, it doesn't matter. I say, what are you hoping to get out of our time together today? Because I want to know if you think the cards can like genuinely get your ex-wife back, for example. I want to know if you're here to do the inner work. I want to know if you're here to find out more about somebody else. Like, I want to know all of those things. And I very, very more than anything want to know, are you here for the truth? Or again, are you here for reassurance? Just like, again, I've had to admit with myself, I didn't pick this up for reassurance, or I didn't pick this up for truth today. I picked it up for reassurance. And I have read for, especially back in those damn speed reading days, holy cow, did I read for so many. It was like a big mix of, these weren't all my clients, but of the like not most favorable ones. It was always two categories, like the gals out for like a girl's day. It'll be fun. Let's all go get our cards read. And I'm like, they all leave with tissues and their mascara running. I'm like, yeah, it's not fun. It's not like not fun, but it's not, I don't know, man. I wouldn't call it like,
it's a different kind of fun.
Yeah. It's cool. It's fascinating. It's interesting and intriguing. All of those things. Thought provoking. But like, we just all went and got bottomless mimosas and wanted to drop by for our cards. And I'm like, oh, get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Oh my God.
Or it's this other category of, it's totally like, I had this dream. I had this relationship. This thing happened to me. I had this crazy spiritual sign, something like that. And then they look at you, the reader, and they're like, fill in the blank.
No,
what
tell me what to do.
Yep. What did it mean? What do I do? Where's my life going? And this is why, since the earliest days of That Witch Next Door, I position any kind of session that I do around, I teach you how to find that answer within yourself. Quite frankly, even if by some magical reason I really do know the answer, I find that it is so much more empowering and effective if the person realizes and chooses this for themselves anyways. You probably get lots of these kinds of, you have lots of conversations like this. Exactly. Where it's like, I'm not supposed to give you all the answers. You are supposed to do some of the work here.
Yeah. And sometimes I've had quite a few people that'll come back for multiple readings. And sometimes, most of the time, those people are wonderful. Sometimes I will get the people that'll go, well, you said this in my last tarot reading, that this happened. And I go, okay, first of all, if that happens to you, I think it's important for us to to explain to our clients that tarot is not set in stone. It's not a future telling system. And like I always think about this. I can't remember who I heard this from. It was one of the teachers along the way that I had. But like every single decision you make every single day, and every decision every other person makes every single day, affect the outcome of your life.
So, the amount of variables.
Right. There's unending possibilities for your life. And that's why when I read for people that are looking for that justification for their own actions or for what they want to do, what other people have done for them, like they want me to come in and say, yes, this was right that you did this, or this was right that they did this.
Yes.
And that's, I try to explain to them that like right and wrong, first of all, are just a matter of perspective.
100%.
And also, this goes along with the people that ask for the yes or no kinds of questions, right?
Yeah.
Was this right? Was this wrong? Those kinds of answers are never going to give you growth. What does a yes give you other than validation, I suppose?
But it's so fleeting. Exactly.
Right. What
Even if you're right
now?
in this moment, what does that mean? Like,
right.
I finally have started answering that question when people say, did I do the right thing? Am I on the right path? Do you know what I usually say? Which probably pisses people off. I'm like, probably both. And mostly right. Like, honestly, our souls, like the universe is not set up for failure. Obviously, we're set up for growth and evolution. There are countless and infinite examples of that.
Right.
But I don't know, like you're probably technically doing some things wrong right now, but in the greater picture of things, you're supposed to be doing those things wrong so that do you see what I'm saying? So in the scheme of things, it probably is all right. Big fat air quotes there. Like, I'm sure it's the right thing that you're doing, but it's people don't understand how arbitrary of a question that actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people also don't understand that like what's right for you right now may not be right for you later on.
Exactly.
So maybe it was right. Maybe it was right, but maybe now you've grown and it's not right for you anymore. And I think like tarot in general, I think has taught me personally how to really go with the flow with the ups and downs in life, because I learned very quickly, that like when you get those scary cards, like it's much better to not beat yourself up about them or to go down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, what could this mean? What's going to happen to me? And then like you search every single site that you can find to figure out what does this mean? Like that's not going to help you. What you can do is, okay, if something like this does happen, then how am I going to feel and how am I going to react to it? And what comes up for me when I think about this thing happening? And you know, to be more introspective rather than to try to like problem solve or to figure out exactly how you're going to deal with any bad thing when it comes to you. It's like, just let it come. It's going to come one way or another. We all have ups and downs. We just have to learn how to deal with them when they happen. And if we're operating from a space of fear, we're much less likely to be able to navigate those situations in a way that's going to be wise, right?
Yeah. Or even understand the actual message. If we're constantly framing it through a place of fear, you are very likely limiting the wholeness of the message and only letting yourself hear parts of it.
That's something. I think one other thing that I wrote down was like, it's important to, I think when you're first learning, you can get really attached to a very specific meaning behind each card, right? Because you get so used to, you know, after you look up in your books, you're like, okay, so it's this. And then you start reading it just this one way. Right. So I think it's important for us to always remember that like each of these cards can be different in every moment. So I even tell my clients that actually when I send out my readings, I say to them, if you have anything that came up for any card that appeared or anything that I brought up with these cards, then feel free to ask me a question, but also feel free to do your own research, because I think that that's powerful. My very first reading, this brings me back, my very first reading that I ever got from someone was at it was at a rough time of my life. It was like my rock bottom a few years ago. And I went to a Reiki healer and she had tarot. So she did I think what she called it was like an alchemist reading or something like that. So she had the tarot deck where the magician was the alchemist, right? And she did a reading for me. And I remember first of all, at the time I was very skeptical. So I was like, this is silly, me. But after a while, I did sit with it. And I do believe I've always believed in the power of Reiki. I have a Reiki healer mom. So I've always believed in that. And I was like, well, she gave me this wonderful healing. So let's sit with these messages. I literally sat on those messages for like a year. I would come back to that email that she wrote me because she sent me like a rundown of it in written form afterwards. And I would come back to it over and over and over again. And still to this day, I have these very specific like memories that go along with the cards that she picked for me. But I always try to remember that like, you're not going to know exactly what these cards mean until you really live through them. And that's what I tried to do is really sit with them. And I did my own research, and that's what brought me the actual messages. I mean, I could listen to this lady talk to me and say all these things to me, and it went in one ear out the other at that time, right? So that might happen with your readers or with your clients that you read for. That might happen. They might listen to your reading and go, I don't know. And then months down the line, they'll look back and they go, they really did have some good things to tell me. That's really good
advice. It's so true. Sometimes it takes our clients, and including ourselves, and that's totally okay, a long time for that message to sink in. I think that's a really, really valuable insight, because we're kind of programmed, right, to like naturally go, what's wrong with me? I did this reading wrong. Right. Yes, exactly. And it's funny, that was my next and probably my biggest point that I would go back and tell myself. You're not cheating. That's called imposter syndrome.
So true. So true.
Oh my God. The amount of times in my life, tarot aside, that I wish I could go back and say, you're not actually a fraud. This is called imposter syndrome. It takes you many years to even learn what that is and be able to put a label on it. I don't think I learned that term until, God, a handful, if that, of years ago. I mean, when I really finally took my mental health healing journey into my own hands, was like, okay, I need like support outside myself. I think that's when I first was introduced to the term. And like, I thought I was the only one who experienced that, because you're so in that belief that you're doing something wrong and that you are this fraud, and who the hell do I think I am? Especially in something that can be as vulnerable as tarot. Right. People would open up to me about huge things. Strangers would tell me huge things. And you kind of can't help it, especially when you're first starting out, to leave that space, even if the reading, and this is the biggest thing, I think this is the most insightful part of the advice, even when the reading goes well, that will happen. Like the reading would go amazing. We'd have this in-depth conversation. They would, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they'd cry. You know what I mean? Like it would resonate so deeply with them. Like we know it hit deeply. I'd feel so good. And then my imposter syndrome cycle would begin, but I didn't know that's what it was. And I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God, it was so heavy. Did you have like big imposter syndrome when you started reading for other people?
I still have it sometimes. I think
totally.
It shows up, and it shows up in the same way for me sometimes, especially when things go well.
Me too.
Funny little imposter
it's kind
voice.
Of worse. Yeah.
It's like you tricked them. You bitch, how'd you do that? And like it's just it gets dark real fast if you let it go. I think I'm so familiar with imposter syndrome because in my life I've like started so many different kinds of businesses that were all very different and required different skill sets that I at the time didn't have. So I had to like do a lot of learning and do a lot of understanding that like maybe I'm feeling impostery. Maybe I don't know everything about this thing that I'm doing, but I'm never going to know it if I don't allow myself to do it.
Yes.
So the doing is where you start to undo the imposter feeling, right? You just have to do it, because when you do it, you realize that you are going to make these meaningful connections with other people. And maybe it's not going to be perfect every time. And maybe you're still going to have that little mean voice in your head. But as long as we can recognize it for what it is, then we can
Right.
start to really peel it away from our like first reaction that comes through, right?
Imposter syndrome is just insecurity in disguise, you guys. It's
Yep.
not anything more than an insecurity about yourself.
Mm.
It is so fucking rarely rooted in reality. And even when it is, I can basically always promise you whatever it is, you can rectify.
Yes.
I think that was the biggest, most empowering fucking turn of my professional spiritual journey was embracing the phrase, I don't know, and not feeling shame for it and not getting mad at myself for it and just embracing the hell out of it and going, I don't know that. I'd have people sit down and go, you know, and it'd always be some schmo off the street that didn't know anything about this stuff, had never done a lick of inner spiritual work in their life. And they sit down and they go, yeah, I need you to tell me what is going on with my aura. And I was like this baby tarot reader. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I can't say your aura. I don't know. And at the time I was like, I mean, I know I have these energetic sensitivities, but I don't understand fucking anything about them yet. Like I was so new to them. And it was, I would, you know, a client like that in the very beginning sitting down would throw the rest of my day off. It could throw my energy off so bad because the truth is it was triggering an insecurity. It's not that that was true, that I was some fraud and some imposter. This person sat down and gave me their money and asked me to give them a reading. I'm not a fraud. Like I didn't call anyone in. I didn't write. Like you came in off of the street. And when I finally started just embracing, like, I don't know. That's not my specialty. I don't do that. I can maybe refer you to someone, or that's something that you'll have to discover on your own. Oh my God, it set me free. It absolutely set me free.
Oh my God. No, I think when you were talking about that, it brought up something for me. I feel like whenever we're reading for other people, it's so easy for us to feel like we have to meet this standard for tarot readers. And again, it always goes back to like what people think they know about tarot from what they've seen.
Again, so arbitrary.
Yes. And like, I think for me specifically on that journey, like I've always felt this pressure to, well, how should I say this? I am not a medium of any sorts. I do not get specific messages like for other people. Sometimes I get little things for myself. I'm really just starting on that journey though. And it's not something that I really use in my tarot readings. Of course, I'm using my intuition and stuff, but I'm not seeing visions of people's lives, right? And I used to have so much imposter syndrome around that because I felt like I needed to have that in order to be a tarot reader. And so I started to really like, I don't want to say, I guess, curb the expectations of people by saying that, like, I'm not here to give you all the answers. I'm here to help you to find the answers. And while I present the cards to my querents, I make sure to present them in a way that's open. So I don't say like, this card means this. It's like, this card could mean these things. And like really, and sometimes I'll even give them advice. I'll say, if you're not quite sure about this, then you can try doing these things to see how you feel about it and see what comes up. Yeah, I tell so many men to journal. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. These are people that I'm like, have you been to therapy?
Go within. Yes. You're searching for something external. You know, most of my demographic is women, but I'm telling them the same thing, my dear.
So everybody, like, we all just need to write down our feelings.
Yes. Just
maybe not even write it, but
let it pour out. Totally. Exactly. Oh, I totally agree with that.
I wanted to share with you, this is kind of funny because before I got on this call with you, I picked some little oracle deck cards, and it goes so perfectly with what you just brought up about the imposter syndrome. Because, okay, so this is my favorite oracle deck. It's the Healing Mantra deck by Matt Kahn. And it's my favorite. And the two cards that I pulled for us for this specific podcast were Uncovering Confidence and Rewriting the Subconscious. So Uncovering Confidence has a mantra. They both have mantras. The one for uncovering confidence is I am the missing piece that completes the puzzle of the universe. It's pretty. And then rewriting the subconscious was the more I embrace feeling good, the less often I will feel bad. I think for these, it really made me think, oh my gosh, we have all of these subconscious thoughts that come through whenever we're experiencing that imposter
Yes.
syndrome, where we're like, oh, you're a fake, you're a fraud. How could you do this? How could you? And we really just have to rewire that for ourselves. We have to focus on the times that our readings go well, not perseverate on the times that maybe weren't so great, because when it comes down to it, that person probably just wasn't ready for that message that you had for them.
Oh my God, that's so true.
And you just have to sit in your confidence. Even if someone doesn't react well to your reading, it doesn't mean that you didn't say what needed to be said.
Exactly. And more often than not, it's about them and not about you.
Mm-hmm. It's important to remember. It's
totally
hard,
agree.
Yeah.
It really, really is. I'm just so excited to get to, honestly, in a lot of ways, we're continuing this conversation in your workshop. And I'm so excited because I think that it is obviously this booming industry. The spiritual and tarot industry is just growing rapidly. I am one of the people who's excited about that. I want us infiltrating fucking everywhere. I just want us everywhere.
We're coming for you.
Yeah, exactly. No industry will be left untouched. But I really think that as this industry and as this practice of tarot and cartomancy itself just grows in popularity, I wanted this to kind of be like a frequently asked questions. And I think that's exactly what we went through, because I think that even if you have been reading tarot for a while, I think that you really resonated a lot with what a lot of Mary Sue and I have said. And I hope that it does for you exactly what it does for me, which is I need these reminders. You know, I slink right back into my imposter syndrome. I slink right back into my insecurity throughout phases and times of my life as well. And I love these reminders because we're always kind of rebirthing all of our practices, including our tarot practice. And it's so important to revisit these things, whether we're total newbies or we are very, very seasoned readers. So, Mary Sue, I think that a lot of people have been very, very happy to connect with you and your energy today. So I'd love for you to let us know more about your podcast, where we can find you, and also where we can follow you on social media and all of that.
Thank you so much for having me today. This was really, really fun. I am going to be releasing my podcast every 2 weeks. You can check out the first episode. You just need to visit my website. It's xoxomarysue.com. And you can get all the information you need to connect with me on any of my platforms. And the very first episode is me talking about my spiritual journey in relation to sex work. So if you are interested in that, go ahead and listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can reach out to me and let me know what you think of episode 1.
Yay! And if you are a full-time student, Mary Sue is in Mighty Networks with us. So she's someone you very, very much can connect with. Exactly. This was a good one. This will not be your last time. I have a couple other episode ideas I want you to come back for, just so you know. So thank you so much, my dear, for coming. This was a freaking blast.
Thank you so much for having me, Danny.
Of course. Everybody, thank you so, so much for your time today and every day. I am always immensely grateful for the time that you take to spend with all of us. I hope that this episode leaves you feeling a little bit more informed, a little more inspired. Make sure that you have a beautiful rest of your week. Stay safe, have fun, and stay magical out there. Hi, neighbor. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of That Witch Podcast. If you want to support the show and get your hands on some really magical goodies, make sure you check out some of the awesome companies that I'm an affiliate for in the show notes below. You can also leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes as well as Spotify now. And really the best way to support That Witch Podcast is just by sharing the show online, like your social media platforms, or telling a friend that you think would enjoy it. If you're looking for more magical content like bonus episodes, classes I teach, and support in your witchcraft, make sure you come check us out in That Witch School, my magical monthly membership with a very welcoming private online community. And don't forget to subscribe to my email list for weekly astro forecasts, journal prompts, and more, and to stay up to date with all of the happenings here in the neighborhood.